Great day, everyone. Great day, everyone. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Overnight Success Podcast. I'm your host, Diamond McNulty, founder and CEO of McNulty International, creator of the Success Club, author of How to Become a Successful Young Man, Woman, Success Recovery, and 12 Things Entrepreneurs Should Pray For. And here at the Overnight Success Podcast, we're here to do one thing, and that's to empower high schoolers and college students to focus on success and succeed in life. And just like any other day, we're going to do that. We have a special guest. I'm excited. This journey is going to be amazing to share, right? Not only is he a chiropractor, a sleep expert, he's a published scientist and inventor. So we get to share the journey of Dr. Jarrett Grunstein. Come on in, Doc. How you doing today?
Oh, it's
Come
great to
on
be here. Thanks, Diamond.
in. Yes, let's share this journey. Let's empower some youth through your journey, right? So before we get started, is there anything you want to share with our audience?
Well, I'm just so excited to be here because the journey from being a high school student to today has been such an interesting one. And I love sharing it with young people because I just see such potential in this generation coming up. They are just so amazing in my eyes. So I love the opportunity to share.
I love it. And then you're passionate about mentoring, like you said. So I can only imagine the impact that you've already made. So, Doc, let's take it back. Where were you born and raised? How was your upbringing and all of that good stuff?
So I'm from New Jersey, northern New Jersey, about 20 miles from New York City.
Okay.
And I grew up, I went to public school. If I'm being honest, I wasn't too serious of a student. I think once high school came around, I started getting more serious. And, I was fortunate enough to go to a school that gave me the opportunity to eventually prepare me for college. And I ultimately went to Emory University in Atlanta, and I went to study business, of all things. And this is a big learning lesson for me was that I thought I wanted to study business, but once I got there and started taking classes, and to be honest, 18 years old, 19, you're really starting to find yourself and what you really love in the world. And I realized, you know what? I don't want to study business at all. That's not who I am.
That's
And
good.
yeah, so, I'm really all for taking time with things and doing things properly.
Mhm.
So, against the better, at least the advice of my parents, I took a semester off and I stopped the process, and I moved out to California and
Oh,
just got some odd end jobs and worked and came back to Emory for one more semester. And then I ended up transferring to a Tibetan Buddhist college.
oh, I love it. And as you mentioned, right? So even coming up in those early ages, like you said, not being too serious, were there any mentors or anyone that was guiding you throughout that grammar school, high school years?
I wish I had them. If I'm really
Mhm.
being honest, I always wanted mentors, and I think that I probably would have thrived had I seeked them out more in looking back. Because when people have experience in life, it's just invaluable if they're willing to spend time with you and tell you about their road, and you take their advice or at least learn from their errors, their experiences. You can avoid making certain mistakes along the way just because you can see what happened when they went down certain roads. So, unfortunately, I didn't really have any mentors at that age. I did pick up some mentors later on, which I'm
Mhm.
very grateful for, though.
No, that's wonderful. Now here you are, right? You're figuring yourself out. At what age did you really identify? Okay, well, these are my gifts. These are the things that I'm passionate about.
Mm. I think I was around 19 when I was
Mhm.
down at Emory, and I started realizing my purpose in this life was not necessarily to go and operate a business, at least at that age. I wasn't thinking along those lines. I thought what I really want when I really started understanding who I was in the world, I wanted to give back. I wanted to help heal people. And, I was so sad until I made that decision. But once I realized my role is to be that of a healer, someone who's a caregiver, someone who's a doctor in the world ultimately, my joy level went way up because I felt like I'd finally found my path.
Oh, Doc, you talking to him now. I'm telling you. And that's why we're here. More than likely, everyone's purpose is to give their gift to the world to help others. And once you figure that out, then everything else will align itself. Now, what were some of your biggest challenges, whether it's high school or college, right? In high school.
Well, I think, again, I want to be really honest with your audience. I wasn't really a big reader in high
Mhm,
school. The subject matter didn't particularly excite me at that
mhm,
age. I was really someone who wanted to ultimately talk about philosophy. I wanted to talk about psychology. These were things that interested me, but they really didn't have classes at the time. I think now they do actually offer more psychology classes and that type of thing in high school. But I'm an old guy. They didn't have it back then. So when I, got to college and I started finding books that were all about self-help and psychology, boy, all of a sudden my interest level skyrocketed and I couldn't stop reading at that point.
right. Now that's when it clicks. When you become that reader and it opens up that paradigm, oh my goodness, right? Now, what advice would you give a high schooler now looking back on how they should navigate their trajectory?
I think that I would recommend any high schooler to follow what they're really interested in, what makes them excited, whatever that is. It really actually doesn't matter as long as it's something you're not doing any harm in the world and it has some type of constructive element to it. I really do. Can I say God in here? Is that okay?
Yes, of
All
course.
right. Okay. I really believe that God gives us these gifts. Each of us, we
Yes.
we come into life with gifts, and we know that there are gifts when one, we enjoy it, and two, we're kind of naturally good at it. So for me, science and mathematics always came pretty easily to me. And that was, ultimately what the road I went down as a researcher. And, of course, studying to be a chiropractor was a lot of medical study. And so I ultimately found what was in my heart and what I was good at and what I liked doing. I think that's the biggest key.
Awesome. Now, when you were heading from high school to college, did you have any assistance? How did your decision making process come along, and who helped you?
Mm. Again, I want to say I had a host of, or even one or two mentors, and I really didn't. And to be fair, this is in a sense a cautionary tale in that I possibly could have avoided going to a school to study business when that really wasn't where my heart was at. I thought
Mhm.
that's what I was supposed to do. I was following guidelines that society had shared with me that, if you go and start big business or go in to become an investment banker, you'll be happy. And that wasn't my truth at all. So I had to go down that road, and there's no regrets. We learn from our mistakes, hopefully, and I did. And what I learned is to follow my heart. So, yeah, ultimately at that stage of my life, 18, 19, 20, I didn't have any mentors yet. But to be fair, I wasn't looking hard enough. And that would be one of my suggestions is try to look for people in life where you really want what they have and you see that they're living the life that you admire. And those would be the people I would reach out to if I could go back and do it again.
Talk to them. Awesome, awesome. Look at it. You see it. Dwayne said exactly the same thing. Look, you'll see somebody that has what you want, and just learn from them. Now,
Mhm.
as you were transitioning from high school to college, when did you have your first job? Like, what was that experience like?
Well, I was always a worker bee. That is just how I'm wired. So at 12 years old, I was babysitting. 13 years old, I was out at a country club caddying, carrying golf bags, as many hours as they'd let me work. By
Mhm.
14, 15, I was working in retail. I don't know if they work that this young these days, if they're even allowed to, but when I was back growing up in the 80s, I worked, and I always liked having my own money. And
Mhm.
my parents, they didn't just give me money. I had to go and earn it. And what I can say is that those jobs that I had, those early jobs, ended up contributing to my career in ways that I never could have guessed. And the example I'll give you was as a caddy at a very expensive country club, working for people who expected very high level of service. And I was
Mhm.
only 13, 14, 15 at the time. And I learned how to give good customer service. And I don't care what field you go into, you need to learn how to give good customer
Yes.
service, whether you're running a business or you're just working for someone else. It really is imperative to be able to understand the customer's needs, how to meet them in a very honest and straightforward fashion, and to do it as much as possible with a smile because people like when you smile.
Hello, my name is Diamond McNulty, and I want to welcome you to the McNulty International Success Club, where we help youth and adults create their personal success plans to achieve their dreams in life. Visit McNultyInternational.com today and register, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of y'all inside the boardroom. Yes. People definitely love that. So now, as you was going, because you're when you entered college, right? You entered into various areas. Walk us through that journey and how did you navigate all of that before you stepped out into your career?
Mm. So, well, let's see. So, like I said, I went to Emory from public school in New Jersey. At the time, I was just thinking, let me get into the very best college that I could. And Emory was warmer than New Jersey. It was warmer in Atlanta.
Yes.
But it also had a very good reputation. And I also, I learned a lot about myself there, which I think college, if I'm being honest, I think college is as much about getting on a career path as it is learning about yourself. For the first time, you're out on your own. Mom and dad aren't there cooking for you, doing your laundry, and you're learning these life skills that I think, need to be learned. And also just socializing with people from all over the country versus just people from your hometown, people coming from different backgrounds, different cultures. All of that really taught me a lot about myself and how to be a young man in the world who can interact with any individual and hold my own. It gave me confidence to stand on my own 2 feet.
Oh, that is awesome. Because our students now, right, as they're stepping out of their own, they need to understand that this is the opportunity for them to own that, right? Take accountability for their own lives and move themselves forward and reach for the support and success and help if they need so. Now, did you have any setbacks, right? I call them setups throughout your
Yes.
journey that set you up to propel, or most others will call them failures, but I call them setups.
Yes. Okay. So my story goes like this. I got to Emory, and the first 3 semesters there, I got basically straight A's. I was really a diligent student. But during that process, I started realizing that business wasn't really what I wanted to study. And so the fourth semester, I got all D's and F's. And I basically was getting through, they were threatening to kick me out of the school. That's when I took a semester off. I took a step back. I went to California. I lived with a friend. I just got jobs where I worked. I went back to Emory. I went one more semester and I got all D's and F's again. And basically what was going on essentially is I was recalibrating. And this is really important. I think we need to understand that exactly what you just said. It's not failure when you change your mind.
Mhm.
It's actually, life is long, God willing. And making the decision to go down a road just because it's easier and more convenient is not always necessarily the way. I am so grateful that I stopped and I took that pause and that I ultimately transferred to a different school in Colorado, where I did the next 2 years, where I then studied psychology and I minored in yoga, which was very different from what I was studying at Emory. But now, all of a sudden, I mean, I was studying like crazy. I couldn't get enough of this stuff because it was feeding my soul. It really fed me. And I had recalibrated my life. So some people could say, well, you failed out at Emory, you were a failure. And, certainly my parents weren't happy at the time. They were very worried about me. But for
Mhm.
me, I had made a move that set me up on the course where eventually I had a career based upon this change.
Yes, and you've identified those passions, and that gave you the joy, like you said. Now, here on the Overnight Success podcast, I like to tell our youth that nothing just happens overnight, right? But sometimes you have to put in the work overnight in order to bring your dreams to life. What were some of your overnight moments so far throughout that journey? And you're like,
Mm.
mm,
Well, I'll tell you what happened. This is a couple years later. Fast forward, I graduated from uh, school, from college, and then
mhm,
we can talk about what I did next. Eventually, I went to India to study more
mm,
yoga. And I remember coming back and I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I was in their management program, and there was a chiropractor around the corner from the office where I was working. And I would
mm,
just pass this chiropractor over and over again. I didn't even know what a chiropractor was at the time. And I went in and I asked him and I interviewed him and then I took him out for lunch, which I highly recommend doing with people who you admire and you think, wow, I want what this guy's got. Invite him out for lunch. Chances are he's going to actually end up paying or she'll end up paying anyway. But always invite him out to lunch or ask if you can interview them, which is such a great way. And this is what I did. And after this interviewing of this gentleman and taking him out to lunch, I had a light bulb moment. I'm supposed to be a chiropractor. And that was really what set the course for my career. This just taking the opportunity and having the courage to ask this person, this doctor, everything that he does, what he loves about it, what he doesn't love about it, and then realize that, I mean, that's when God put it in my heart. You're supposed to be a chiropractor. And that opened up all sorts of doors eventually. Yeah.
wow, I can only imagine, right? That was
Yeah.
that was the moment. Now, how did you
Yes.
connect those dots from there?
So I've always been, when my mind is set, my mind is set. And when I knew that this was what I was supposed to do, it was a very long road. Now I had to go, actually, I didn't study any medicine in undergrad. So I had to go back and do all my pre-med requirements, which took a year. I had to work full time while working, studying at night. It was an excruciatingly difficult year. But ultimately, that is what got me into chiropractic school, where I studied at a school in California. Well, ultimately, first Oregon and then California. But yeah, it was a very difficult journey. And I always tell my young patients this when we talk about these things. I always say, usually, most things that are easy aren't good in the sense that things that are really good are hard. If they weren't, everyone would do them. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the quality things, quality takes effort, but good things are worth it. And that's why it needs to be, I feel, aligned with our heart, because it's the heart that gets us through those tough moments when things get difficult and you need to
Yeah.
just tough it out and get through it. That's why your heart needs to be aligned with your head with this process.
Yeah, and build up that strength to persevere because this journey is not easy, Doc. I'm telling you,
No.
no matter where you're born and raised, right? No matter if you have support or not,
Yeah.
this is called life for a reason. This is called
Yes.
life for a reason. So sometimes
Yes.
things happen. Now, are there any books or resources that helped you out throughout your journey?
Mm. Well, I have two favorite books, so I'm going to make
Mhm,
those recommendations right now. Not
mhm,
surprisingly, one is in psychology and the other is in yoga.
mhm,
So these are books that I recommend to all my young patients. I think that they are um, one is a little bit more difficult read, but they're both readable and they're both will change lives and really
mhm,
open up doors. And these you may not get these recommendations elsewhere, so I think they're unique. One of my favorite authors is Eckhart Tolle,
mhm,
and he has a book called The Power of Now,
mhm.
which is much like it sounds, the power of being in the moment. Because when you're present in the moment, you can do anything. And so, with that book, I highly recommend people consider meditating. A meditation practice has been a part of my life for 30 years now. And I can tell you, if anyone asks what my secret to success was, it's meditation. That's my secret.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
And the reason is that when we meditate, we have much better peace in the moment. And when we're controlled and in the moment and we're really present, we can handle anything. And that's where meditation comes in. The second
Awesome.
book, yeah, the second book I would recommend is by one of my teachers. His name is Paramahansa
Mhm.
Yogananda, and it's called Autobiography of a Yogi.
Mm.
And this is a book that's affected, actually, both these books have affected millions of people around the world. These are very popular books. And I find that I read each of them on a regular basis. I'll revisit them through the years. Any good book, you can go back to, and depending on what stage of life you're at, you'll hear something that you didn't really even remember from that time, and it'll have new lessons for you. So really good books will do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to tell our youth too, because that's so important. Not only is reading important, but why is reading important? So think about this. There are individuals who have lived their entire lives focused on accomplishing certain successes or certain goals, and they have compressed information into 100 pages, 40 pages. They did all the work and organized it just for you. And for $10, you can absorb that information in that soul, right? So you want to be able to get into soul search and get all the information you can so that you can have that wisdom, right? So Doc, I got it. I got to get your book too, right? We need that wisdom. But just hearing your story is that right? It's being able to absorb that information that person is able to share. Now, how important has relationships been throughout this journey, right, of yours?
Mm. Mhm. Well, boy, that's a great question because I think only in relationships, and when I use the word relationships, I'm talking about friendships, relationships with your family, relationships, romantic relationships, all of the above. I think that's where we really learn about ourselves. That's really where I've learned about myself. Because, people who are close to you and love you, they oftentimes see you in different ways than you see yourself. And so it's often really helpful for me, to get feedback and share my thoughts about thoughts and feelings that I'm having with people who really care about me so that I can get other perspectives on things. Because,
Yes.
if I have this attitude that I know, I know, I know, oftentimes I don't know. And People who love me often have been an amazing, amazing part of really learning parts like blind spots, parts of myself that I don't see. So
Mhm.
yeah, relationships have been a huge blessing. My mother in particular.
Oh, talk to it. Relationships, family, all of those good things. So, Doc, we were able to tap into your earlier years, right? So now, as we move forward into the current state of great things, how did you become an inventor? Like, how did all of that come about? And where did that come from? And how did you see that through?
That's a great question. So I started my practice 20 years ago in Clearwater, Florida.
Mhm.
And right out of the gate, I put on my questionnaire on my history form. I asked patients, how do you sleep? Your back? You sleep on your sides? You sleep on your stomach?
Mhm.
And what I learned was a couple things. One, I learned that people shift between their sides and their back, oftentimes, about two-thirds of people do.
Mhm.
And I also really started to recognize that my patients' low back and neck problems was often coming from how they were sleeping at night. In other
Mhm.
words, I could fix a neck by doing my chiropractic adjustments. And 2 weeks later, I get a call that their neck is hurting again and that they
Mhm.
slept wrong. So I started looking in the marketplace and seeing was there a pillow that I could recommend for how they slept and analyzing what a pillow would look like. And what I realized is there was no pillow really for how most people slept, shifting between their sides and their back. And so through a very long process, I started trying to figure out what would a pillow look like if it was actually going to support a neck and a head correctly. And that's what led me to ultimately inventing the first version of a pillow that
Yeah.
it was actually in the marketplace for a few years. And now we have a second version of the pillow that's even better than the first. And we're just
Yeah.
in the process of launching that.
Right, because and I'm glad that you touched on so many things. But like you said, there was a first edition and then there was a second. So that continuous improvement mindset when you create something, like what were your thoughts on that? And definitely do share the pillow. Let everyone see it so they can see what you created,
Oh
Doc.
yeah, yeah. This is the pillow here. So you got
Yeah,
a back sleeping section here in the center, and then two side sleeping sections on the side. So it's really three pillows in one. And
yeah.
yeah, um, it's a very long process when you are
Mhm.
looking to try to create something new.
Mhm.
And we should really call it an innovation. An
Yeah.
innovation technically means when you're taking other people's ideas and improving upon them. So there was
Mhm.
a version of this that chiropractors used to sell and still sell. And I basically took that and I made it better. I
Yeah.
built a better mousetrap. And,
Yes.
and then when the first version was out in the market, it was called Dr. J's Sleep Solution. It was a
Yes.
good pillow, but I saw that there was problems with it. It flattened out a little bit too fast. It didn't quite hold its form. I thought maybe I can make the design even more technical. And so I went back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
And this parallels my career, my school path, which is,
Yeah.
basically you go down a road and you evaluate where you're at. And if you need to make course corrections, that's not only okay, it's
Yes.
great. That's how
Yes.
we grow. And to be honest, you don't know what you don't know,
Yes.
right? So it's only until you get to a river, do you know how to navigate the rocks to cross that river, and you
Yes.
can't navigate it until you get there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so everything is done in steps. That's what I've
Mm-hmm.
learned. And one of the things that brings, I think, anxiety to all of us is we want to know all the answers now, everything that's going to come down the road in the future. And that's just not how life works.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a step-by-step process. And if we look at it in a grade level kind of fashion, I learned second grade and third grade and fourth grade, and you keep growing in each grade. That's to me the
Mm-hmm.
healthiest way to see it.
Yes, yes. That one step at a time, right? That faith and putting in that work. But you
Mhm.
touched on something that really stood out. Sometimes when you have this map and things that you want to create and develop, the map looks one way, you envision it this way, but when you get into that terrain,
Mm.
oh, you get down on those rocks, everything may be different. So you gotta have the fortitude to persevere and keep going. Like just don't stop, never give up. You had an idea for a reason, so see it through. And Doc, what you've done, not only throughout your journey, right? You were able to become aware. This is what I love that you shared with our youth. You were aware of who you was at the time. You were you be aware of what you needed to learn, and you were aware of connecting the dots while you were going throughout the process. So I'm glad that you were sharing that with our youth. And this pillow is purpose driven, right? You saw it, a problem, and you created a solution. And that's what our youth need to know. If you have an idea, you know, take the next steps to see it through. So, Doc, what motivated you to stay focused in developing this chiropractic office, right? To bringing the pillow to life and other endeavors that you have coming on.
Well, this is where, going back to what we were saying when I made this shift in my college years, I really am driven by helping people. That's what brings me happiness. It's never been making money. I can see a lot of patients in the course of a day. And at the end of the
Mhm,
day, I feel happy because I help people, not because I made money. That's just how
mhm,
I'm wired. And that's not how everyone's wired that way. But I think the important point is to know how you're wired.
yes,
So for me, I've been driven by this desire to help people because it's what makes me feel good. And so, the pillow, which is a very difficult thing to do to get an idea into the marketplace. I think it's important for people to understand the realities of this. It's the realities, the facts are that only 1% of inventions actually get into the marketplace. So what that means is that doesn't mean to get discouraged. It just means that, that it's a lot of hard work and you want to be
yes,
aware of what you're getting into. But
yes,
for me, it was very much driven, this process, and is driven to this day by really wanting to help others. And so, since I see patients each day who often come to me and say, I went to sleep, I felt great, and I woke up, and
mhm,
all of a sudden my back or my neck started bothering me. This is what
mhm,
drives me to think, maybe I can treat people all around the country and maybe all around the world with the devices that I'm creating. And
yes.
that brings me so much joy to think that I can bring and reduce suffering in the world. That's how I'm driven. So that's the driving force behind all of this.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Like you said, helping others support their neck and back pain. Um, how can people follow you, Doc, and just connect with you, or even get access, get their hands on this pillow, so that they can move, so they can replace what they currently have and fill in that gap?
Well, I'm going to give you my email. I'm going to give everyone my email here, and anyone is welcome to email me directly if they have any questions or if they just want to talk or ask me anything about my career or otherwise. I'm very open to communicating. My email is JG, S as in Sam, P as in Paul, I, N as in Nancy, EZ as in zebra at gmail.com. And so anyone who wants to reach out, please do. Now, if you're interested in the pillow, we are doing a crowdfunding pre-sale right now. And the pillow website is www.drjspillows.com. That's drjspillows.com.
I love it. I love it. And, just to have this solution that's coming into the marketplace, it's always great to see it, right? Because you hear about ideas, 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 but actually seeing someone bring it to life. Let's continue to support those that are bringing it to life. And then if you, as a student, you as a high school student, college student, or another adult, right, and you have some ideas, pay attention to this journey from Dr. Jarrett and know that anything is possible for yourself as well. It's possible for you to achieve your goals. It's possible for you to start over and do it again. There's so many possibilities for your life, but let's continue to move it forward. Doc, is there anything last minute words you want to share with our audience today?
I'm going to just echo what you just shared. I think that anything that is worth doing is going to be difficult, but when your heart and your mind are determined, you will do it. There is no question you will accomplish it.
I love it. I love it, Doc. Thank you again for joining us inside of the boardroom. This is going to be an amazing journey to share with everyone. And I hope everyone, if y'all have any questions, reach out. McNultyInternational.com, of course. We're here to help our youth create their personal success plans. We have the Success Club available for everyone, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks again, Dr. Jarrett. Talk to y'all soon. Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you.
Bye-bye.